Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Hansen. I am the founder and CEO of Access Therapy Centers. And Access is a multidisciplinary clinic, and we primarily provide ABA therapy, speech, occupational therapy, and feeding services as our main service lines. We also provide training to outside organizations and collaborate with schools, have some contracts with some schools. So try and provide any services that a family or individual that's living with autism could possibly need. Um, we have Currently we have 6 clinic locations. They are in Ames, Ankeny, Clear Lake, Fort Dodge, Urbandale, and West Des Moines. So I'm very excited to present both of the presenters today, Callie Ruggieri and Kylie Wheeler. Callie Ruggieri is a board certified behavior analyst with over 8 years of experience in the field of applied behavior analysis. She currently serves as the clinic supervisor at Access Therapy Center's Ankeny location, where she is passionate about supporting children and families through compassionate, individualized care. Callie earned her bachelor's degree from Iowa State University and her Master of Education with an emphasis in applied behavior analysis from the University of Cincinnati. Her professional interests include early intervention, staff development, and promoting meaningful quality care for clients and families. Outside of work, Callie lives in Polk City with her husband and daughter. In her free time, she enjoys going for walks, trying new restaurants, and traveling. Our next presenter is Kylie Wheeler, and they may look the same. They are identical twins. Kylie Wheeler is a board certified behavior analyst with over 8 years of experience supporting children and adolescents in ABA services, and she has a strong background in early intervention. She currently serves as the clinic supervisor for Access Therapy Centers in Ames and Clear Lake, and she's been a part of the Access team for 8 years. She earned her bachelor's degree from Iowa State University and a master's degree in criminal justice and applied behavior analysis from St. Joseph's University. She's been working with children for over 12 years and is passionate about helping individuals and families thrive. She lives in Ankeny with her husband, 2 children, and their dog. Outside of work, she enjoys spending time with family and friends, exploring new places, and relaxing at home.
Perfect. Thank you, Kristen. All right, I will get started then. So the topic for today is ABA 101. So what Kylie and I want to share with everybody is just a little bit more background knowledge on what ABA is. Maybe you have experience with it. Maybe you're kind of just dabbling into it a little bit and learning a little bit more. So we really want to share these learning objectives that we have listed out. So understanding like the background of ABA, kind of how it started and where we're at today with ABA, gain a little bit more of insight into what ABA services look like in today's like clinical settings. We definitely want to discuss like common misconceptions and myths surrounding ABA, things that maybe you have heard on social media, and maybe you want to like know, is this true? Is it not true? We'll talk about some of those things today. And then we also want to dive a little bit more into like ABA strategies. So just so people can kind of like see like what we're doing in ABA, especially within the clinical setting, since that's where our area of expertise lies. And then we're also going to review how collaboration works with other providers. So thank you guys for taking your time joining us for lunch today. We are open to answering questions that you guys have along the way. So if you do have any questions, I think maybe throw it in the chat, and I think Erin or Tiffany will let us know that you have a question, and we'll try to answer that as we're going through. But we will also save time at the end for questions as well. Okay, so what is ABA? So if ABA is new for you guys, ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. Applied behavior analysis is an evidence-based approach that helps us determine and understand how behavior works and how learning takes place. It is the most effective treatment for individuals with autism and individuals who have different abilities, but the principles of ABA can be applied to anyone. ABA can be used to improve like healthy eating patterns, exercise routines, efficiency in the workplace, or even to like stop smoking. So it can be used for any behavior. It is mostly known for as like an intervention or a service for individuals diagnosed with autism. So today we are going to be mostly talking about ABA as a therapy to help individuals with autism. And I do want to note again that ABA is an evidence-based practice. So everything that we do in ABA is supported by research and data. We will get into some of the misconceptions. of ABA. So these might be some things that you've heard about ABA or heard somebody say before. Maybe you've seen it online, but we definitely want to dispel some of these misconceptions just so that you can have a better understanding and representation of ABA. So the first one, I kind of all have them like in quotations here. And the first one is like ABA forces people to comply. That might be something that people have heard about ABA. But really, ABA focuses on teaching cooperation while also promoting choice making, consent and assent, self-advocacy, and like being able to set boundaries. So this one could be a misconception because of some older ABA practices, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But ABA doesn't just force people to comply, it is more so focusing on teaching like cooperation and promoting independence. Another misconception that people might have heard is that ABA is only used for children. We want to dispel this one as well because ABA is really used for anyone. It's super beneficial across the lifespan and can help with social skills in teenage years up to like teaching like independent living skills. You might hear a lot about like early intervention, and that is talked about a little bit more often in ABA, but ABA is still very beneficial for any learner, not just early learners. Another misconception that we've heard is like ABA cures autism. That's definitely not the goal of ABA. It doesn't aim to cure autism because autism, as you guys might know, is a neurodevelopment condition that is part of who an individual is. And so the purpose is not to change who a person is, but to help them better navigate their environment and take, or just like kind of make things a little bit easier for them. Another misconception is that ABA is about bribing people. ABA does use reinforcement strategies in a meaningful way. We'll talk about those strategies a little bit more in depth in a little bit, but just how like all of us are influenced by reinforcement, like getting paychecks for going to work, getting praise for, doing things. There's like loyalty programs for like gas stations, like all of those things are reinforcements in our world. We use meaningful reinforcements in ABA, so it's not bribery. There's a lot of reinforcement included, but that could be a misconception that people have heard. Another one, ABA is just table work tasks. We're just, drilling kids at the table. They're just, doing flashcards all day. That's a big misconception in ABA. That's definitely not what we do in ABA. So ABA really does focus a lot on play, interacting with peers, playing in the natural environment or using opportunities in the natural environment to teach new skills. ABA can also be done in the community. It can be used to help with daily routines. So ABA is literally everywhere. We can do it in any environment. It's not just table work tasks. So that could be a misconception that people have heard. The last one that we're going to touch on is that ABA tries to make autistic people like look normal. So we just want to emphasize that ABA focuses on improving the quality of life. Modern or like new ABA does not aim to change a person's identity, or it doesn't aim to like suppress any harmless traits. So like there might be some like characteristics like rocking back and forth, or maybe hand flapping, or jumping up and down, or taking special interest in something. We don't try to like stop those behaviors if they're not harmful to anybody. But that could definitely be a misconception. Okay, so we're gonna also go into a little bit about how ABA has evolved. Maybe you guys have heard some terms of like old ABA versus new ABA. So ABA has evolved over the years. It did start in like the 1960s. So as ABA was being developed, it was highly focused on like structure, repetition, compliance. There were some practices that included trying to change behaviors that weren't harmful. So ABA really has evolved over the years, especially with research. The more research that's done, the more that we learn and know about ethical practices, all of those are put into play as ABA is evolving. So today's ABA does place a greater emphasis on individualized treatment. So that means that no two kids' day is going to look the same in an ABA session. New ABA also really focuses on client dignity, assent, compassionate care, quality of life. We also really focus on like teaching new skills and not just like reducing challenging behaviors. I guess that's a part of it, but we really, really do hone in on focusing on teaching new skills. So overall, the goal is just to improve quality of life and not to like change who a person is. So that kind of leads into like what is the goal of ABA? Like how do we get the quality of life improvement and social significance? So essentially the goal of ABA is to decrease unwanted behaviors while also increasing desirable behaviors. We do have to replace any unwanted behaviors with like something that is more appropriate. So we're not just focused on like teaching people like what not to do, but like what they should be doing instead. And that like overall helps improve quality of life. So we can work on like reducing problem behaviors such as aggression, tantruming, self-injurious behaviors, but then at the same time, we're increasing skills for communication, social skills, life skills, or maybe like pre-academic type skills. ABA strategies can be used to teach independence and daily living skills, such as toilet training or following a routine. So we really do focus on goals that are socially significant for the client and for the family. And ultimately, we're using ABA to just improve the lives of individuals that we work with. Family-centered is a big one for us also. So we always say that we're in ABA, we're not just like having the client come in and do sessions with them and then kind of setting them off on their way. It is really focused on like the family, like how can we benefit the family as a whole with ABA? So parents are heavily involved in that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later also. Okay, moving on to strategies. So there's some common strategies that we use in ABA, just to kind of like we kind of want to paint like a better picture of like what ABA looks like. We can tell you about it, but now we want you to like know like what we're like actually doing in ABA sessions to help our kids. So these are some common strategies that we use in ABA. The first one is positive reinforcement, and I'm going to go through these more in depth also. But positive reinforcement is like using like rewards to increase desired behaviors. We do use environmental modification. So we always say if we can change something in the environment that, helps change or improve a behavior, we're going to do that. It's way less intrusive if we can like change something else to help with behavior. So that's a big ABA strategy that's used pretty commonly. Prompting and fading. So this is like providing support when needed, but also teaching independence. We use a lot of prevention strategies. So these are like proactive measures that we can use to stop challenging behaviors. We do a lot of functional communication, so teaching communication skills effectively, and that's going to be based on the individual. So if they maybe they need to use pictures for communication, or maybe they need to use an electronic communication device, or maybe they're using one word or two word vocal communication style, we will aim to like meet them where they're at and teach functional communication. And then visuals, these are other supports that we can use, or like aids to help with teaching. So again, I'm going to go through those a little bit more in depth, and just I also want to like put it together so like like what we're doing in ABA is like also like very natural, and like how it relates to things in the real world or kind of like outside of ABA sessions. So positive reinforcement, a real life example of this one is if a child is independently asking for a snack, so that could again be using words, a device, signs. And then if we give the child immediate access to that snack and then praise for asking, that's positive reinforcement. So in the future, they're going to be more likely to like ask for a snack when they want a snack because that reinforcement was given. Every day, positive reinforcement is around. So we go to work because we get, paycheck for going to work. Or maybe you go to a certain gas station because you know that you have like a loyalty program where you're accumulating like points or dollars or something. So that's another form of like positive reinforcement that's just out there every day. For environmental modifications, some real life examples of this would be using like noise canceling headphones at the state fair. It's very busy there. State fair's coming up. It could be loud, could be a lot going on. So that would be a way that we could like kind of like modify like what their environment sounds like. If they needed that to be more successful to walk through the fair, that would be like a really great intervention. Another example is like adding pictures to like organizational bins that might help somebody be able to better find belongings and materials. So again, that's a way that we can like modify the environment. just like a really easy intervention, but that could, help alleviate some stress about not being able to find something that they want, or maybe they're trying to like put something away and don't know where it goes. So those are just the kind of like easy modifications that we can make to help aid and support kids. Another just everyday example, stuff that we do, we, put our keys by the door so we don't forget them. I know I have a daughter in daycare. If daycare tells me that she's running low on diapers and wipes, if I don't put her name on the package and set it right by the door, I'm probably going to forget to bring her to the daycare. So we're making environmental modifications for ourselves all the time. So that's really easy for us to be able to implement in ABA because it's also natural. Again, kind of just in what people do every day. For prompting and fading, so again, this is when we're like providing assistance to help somebody learn a skill. We can prompt by like pointing, modeling, so showing people how to do something, or it could be giving verbal instructions. Sometimes we do modify verbal instructions as a way to prompt as well. So a real life example of this could be if a therapist is pointing to a client's or a child's communication device to like help them be able to like request for bubbles. Eventually, we fade the point prompt out, and then the child is independently requesting for bubbles on that communication device. So that's a way that we can prompt as for teaching, but then we're fading out in because the goal is always independence as best as they can. An everyday example, we use like GPS, Google Maps, those types of things if we're going to learn a new driving route somewhere, but eventually we fade the GPS out and we're independently driving the new route. So again, another example how like ABA like really does relate to things that we do every day. Prevention strategies. So again, this is making changes before challenging behaviors occur to increase success and reduce like any sort of like confusion or frustration or emotional response to something that might be difficult for somebody. So as an example, parents might give their child like a 5-minute warning before leaving the playground, or maybe a parent's going to give a child like two different options of what to eat for lunch. So those are all like prevention type strategies that can be used. Um, Everyday example, maybe we get hangry when we're driving on long road trips, so we're going to prep for that in advance by packing snacks. Or maybe we are late to meetings frequently, so we need to, in order to prevent being late, we need to set reminders for meetings and appointments coming up. So just another example of real world. And then functional communication. So this is teaching more effective ways to communicate wants and needs, again, by whatever mode of communication works best for that individual. But a real life example could be instead of like throwing toys when frustrated, a child like learns to like ask for help. Like maybe the toy is like not fitting correctly, or maybe it's broken, or maybe they can't turn it on. So we'll teach them to ask for help. So then when they're frustrated, they'll ask for help instead of throwing the toy. So those are things that we do in ABA, is kind of teaching those replacement type behaviors. A lot of it is by teaching the functional communication skills. But in every day, we use functional communication as well. So just an example of this, if we're feeling like overwhelmed with work tasks, instead of like walking out or calling in, we might talk to our supervisor and, say, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed and need help with prioritizing tasks. So we're using functional communication in our day-to-day as well. The last example here is using visuals. So this could be pictures, schedules, or visual cues to help increase an understanding and independence. So a child might need like a visual schedule to see that like playtime is going to come after eating lunch. So sometimes pictures really just help like make that connection of like what's being said and like what kind of the actions are involved in that. So it helps them with a little bit of better understanding. So that could be like a simple intervention that we use in ABA, but it also could be used in everyday life. So we use calendars to keep track of appointments and activities. So we're using visual supports too. So that's definitely something that could be introduced in ABA and help kids outside of just like the clinical setting as well. And then Kylie is going to take it away and kind of go a little bit more in depth into like understanding behavior, since that is something that we do work with in applied behavior analysis. So Kylie, you can take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. Are you still going to be my clicker over there?
Oh, yes. Yes,
Yeah.
I will
Okay,
click for
perfect.
you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, so I do want to dive just a little bit more into the behavior aspect of applied behavior analysis. So as you know, ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. A lot of times people might assume that ABA, because that word behavior is in there, means that we are only here to reduce challenging behaviors. I feel like when we first come into contact with caregivers or other providers or schools, even, oftentimes when we ask them, what is it that you're wanting to gain out of ABA therapy? A lot of times the answer is, well, how do I stop the hitting? How do I stop elopement? How do I get my child to stop having like meltdowns? And so we do want to reiterate that for ABA therapy, our job is more than just reducing those challenging behaviors. And instead, we want to understand the behavior as a whole. And that way we can provide the best plan of action for that child. We're not always going to just stop the behavior. Callie mentioned this earlier too, but other than just stopping the behavior, we're going to teach something to replace it. We always do want to focus on um, what's happening, why is it happening? So that's our job as the behavior analyst, is to really hone in on that aspect, try to figure out what is the function of this behavior, and then that's how we're going to determine what sort of replacement skill we're going to teach the learner. So again, I do want to reiterate that it's not solely about challenging behavior. Behavior is anything that we see and can address and observe. So for just some quick examples, um, if a child engages in aggressive behavior, so maybe they hit because they wanted to get the cookies, um, they have maybe learned that that's going to be the quickest way for them to get those cookies is to hit. So by us being able to identify and figure out um, what it is they're wanting, how they got access to it, what their consequences were, now we can kind of figure out, well, what are we going to teach them instead? And oftentimes, like Callie had mentioned, that skill is going to be a way for them to communicate what it is that they are wanting to get. So we can't just immediately stop the behavior when parents ask us to or when teachers ask us to. It is a process of us being able to really understand that behavior, and then figuring out what the underlying problem is so that we can solve that first. So in order to do that, I'm just going to kind of give you like little tidbits of what we do in ABA therapy, and what we do as behavior analysts is the ABCs. So looking at the antecedent, so what happened right before that behavior. Some things that you might need to take into consideration are, who was there, what was being asked of the child potentially. Was there a change in routine? Um, did we used to go to school at 8 o'clock every Monday, and now it's summertime and now we're going to daycare instead? Maybe that was a change in routine that could be difficult. What was the child doing exactly? So those are all of the components that we're going to look at when thinking about the antecedent or the A part of our ABCs. The B then for our ABCs is behavior. So what exactly did the child or the person do? It's going to be something that's observable, and it's going to be some sort of action that we can see. So were they crying? Were they hitting? Did they throw something? Did they run away? Or, was the behavior that they did ask for help? Or maybe they asked you to open something for them. So anything that we can see the child doing is that behavior. And then we're going to look at the consequence. So what happened immediately after the behavior. A lot of times people think that consequence means punishment, although in ABA, consequence just means what happened next, or what happened immediately after that behavior. So it doesn't mean anything negative or poor or anything like that. It's simply like what happened after that behavior. So some examples might be, how did the parent respond to that behavior? What did the child get access to after that behavior? Did the child avoid something after that, engaging in some sort of behavior? How did other people respond? So these are the things that we're going to look at in order to really identify what is the child doing? What are they trying to gain? What's the function, is what we're going to say. What's the function of that behavior? So that we can figure out exactly what it is that we need to teach. And it sometimes it's a matter of we need to change our consequence. So maybe rather than a verbal reprimand for something, maybe we're going to use a gesture instead. So instead of, you need to stop running, it's going to be like a come here or, follow me kind of thing. So I have just a few examples of how we can identify ABCs in the real world, and maybe some of these resonate with you. I know this grocery store one definitely does for me and my 2-year-old. So let's say you're at the grocery store and um, the antecedent is that you told your child that they are not able to get candy. So maybe they asked for candy, you said, nope, no candy today. The behavior then is they start crying and screaming. Again, you're in the grocery store, could be very overwhelming at the time. People are watching you. And then your consequences, okay, yep, here you go. I'm going to buy you this candy. So that's a very simple ABC. The grocery store one's just a very classic example, but in this situation, by you responding to the crying and the screaming, by buying the child the candy, um, the child has then learned from that interaction that if they continue to cry and scream, then they now get access to what they want. So I know that it sounds like a quick fix in the moment, and it's no judgment on parents at all. I totally understand it happens. It happens to me. Um, but it's kind of just an example of how that simple interaction is what really um, shows the child what they can and can't do because of how you responded to them. Another example might be asking for help. So maybe your child is trying to open a snack. Maybe they have like a package of Oreos. They're trying to get it open. They're struggling with it. And then that behavior is they're gonna throw the snack. And then your consequences, you walk over there, you grab the snack and you open it up for them and they get the snack back and now it's open for them and they have access to their snack. So that example is, uh, showing the child that if they throw things, then they instead of asking for help or asking you to open it for them, they have now learned that they can throw it and somebody's going to come and get it open for them and they're going to get their snack. So with that example, what we're going to really figure out then is, did they just have a hard time opening the snack? Do we need to teach a form of communication? What is it exactly that we're going to teach them in the moment so that we can avoid throwing food in the future? Another little example is bedtime routines. And again, I put this one on here because I deal with this one every night and I still haven't figured it out. But so the antecedent might be telling your child that it's time for bed. And the behavior is maybe the child is like, well, I need my blanket, I need my favorite water bottle, and now I need you to read me 3 books, and then I'll go to bed. So the consequence then, if you are getting them their blanket, their water, they're reading them all of their books, then they have learned that they can delay their bedtime by 20 minutes. So again, it's not like blaming parents or caregivers or anything about what they do, but kind of just an example of how those interactions our kids learn very quickly. People in general learn very quickly based on your response and what your consequences. So it's really just about if we can lay out these antecedent behaviors and consequences, that gives us a better understanding of what the child is getting out of that interaction and what they're learning. So moving on then to functions of behavior. So this aligns nicely with our ABCs. So when we start to notice those ABCs, those patterns, that's how we start to understand like what the behavior is accomplishing for the individual. And more than likely, it's going to be one of these four things. So primarily, somebody is doing something because they want access, so they want to get something. They are maybe trying to get some form of attention, and we know with children that attention can be in the form of like positive attention, like praise and congratulations and things like that. It could also be negative attention. So think about the class clown at school or in the classroom, the child that makes others laugh. So getting attention in that manner. Another way that we can see behavior is to escape or avoid something. So maybe something that could be aversive, something they don't like, something that's scary, something that's loud. Um, Avoiding that, we might see behavior in the form of trying to escape that. And then we can also identify behavior or the function of behavior based on something that's we consider more automatic or sensory. So, meaning that somebody tries to access something because they enjoy it, it feels good, and it's something that they don't need anybody else to make them feel good. So, think about tapping your pencil or rocking in your rocking chair or maybe like humming or whistling. So, if any of those feel good intrinsically to you or help your body feel calm, those are things that might be considered automatic reinforcement or sensory. So, overall, our job um, is to figure out why the behavior keeps on happening, what's working for them, and then what do we need to teach in order for that learner or that child to be more effective in their communication. So, oh, hang on a second.
Oh, did you want me to go back?
Yes. Okay, yeah, no, that's good. So, yeah, Callie kind of reiterated this too at the beginning, but sorry, Callie, you can go back to the functions really fast. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, so our goal is to figure out what those functions are. And then by us doing that, then we know what to teach. And again, we don't ever want to take away anybody's, like uniqueness or personalities or things like that. We ultimately want to make sure that our the children that we see, our learners are safe and not hurting themselves or other people and can be successful out in the community. So, yes, let's go ahead and dive into some goals. So, as ABA providers, we take what a learner's barriers are and their strengths. And what we do is we come up with a comprehensive treatment plan for them to help them gain the skills that we want to teach them in order for them to be able to generalize outside of our clinical setting. So these are just a few goals that we might write. These are just some basic example goals that we might have in an ABA treatment plan for caregivers. So, and we also, I will say, we have another slide in here about collaboration, but we really want input from anybody that's involved in the child so that we can come up with the best comprehensive plan and care plan for the individual. So we love to discuss, with teachers if they're in the school setting. We've been to like daycares before as well to talk to like daycare teachers about what they're wanting to see in the group setting. We might talk to like occupational therapy and speech therapy in order to get their input as well, so that we can make the best decisions for our treatment plans. So these are just a couple of like goal examples that we might have with input from other people and also based off of our direct observation when we are conducting our assessments. So we might have some sort of communication goal for our learners. So we might be teaching them how to appropriately request preferred items using Could be words, it could be signs or a communication device or whatever mode of communication they are utilizing. Another goal might be independently requesting help when needed. A social goal could be the learner will take turns during activities with peers. So if they are primarily in the school setting or a daycare setting, and that's a skill that they haven't mastered yet or haven't shown yet, that's something that we can work on in the clinical setting by, having peers there. We actually have some times where siblings will come in into ABA sessions as well, so that we can work directly with the learner and a sibling, kind of teach the sibling as well how to interact and how to practice sharing with their brother or sister. And that way they can take that information and continue to apply it at home when it comes to taking turns and sharing. And then safety as well. Again, Callie discussed earlier about like social significance and how the goals that we have for our children in ABA are meant to benefit them specifically and keep them safe and ensure that the skills that we teach them clinically can generalize outside of here. So some safety goal examples could be like the learner will stop when told stop. So if we, have a caregiver come in and they say, yeah, my child, runs in the parking lot when we get out of the vehicle. When I tell them to stop, they, continue to run. Um, then that's a goal that we can put in for safety. Being able to have that listener responding skill of stop when saying stop would be a replacement behavior to elopement. Another safety goal might be learning to respond to like personal safety questions. So we always are, kind of thinking about what do our learners need to know, if they were to, get lost or if they're at the park and, someone's like, hey, buddy, like, what's your name? Like, can I help you find, mom or dad? If, teaching them that if somebody says, what's your name? Then they can respond and say, my name is Kylie. We will also even like program those sorts of questions and answers into communication devices as well, and help our learners be able to find those buttons on their device, and be able to find those buttons specifically when we say, like, what's your name, or how old are you, or what's your mom's name, or what's your phone number. So again, the goals that we have are socially significant. Um, they're meant to be individualized to that specific learner, and something that they can take with them outside of just that clinical setting that we typically are in. And then Callie, you can go ahead to the next one. So another huge part of ABA is, well, how are we monitoring progress? How do we know that our learner is ready to go into the school setting? How do we know that they have mastered these skills? So we have, for each of our goals that we have on our treatment plan, we are collecting data in our sessions for those, to monitor progress so that we know that our prompting methods are effective, or our antecedent strategies that we've implemented are effective. And we are constantly monitoring that data so that we can adjust our interventions as needed in order to ensure progress on our goals. And then we also utilize our assessment tools as well to identify progress in areas of like skill acquisition. When it comes to any sort of like challenging or interfering behaviors, we are also tracking our data on that. It might be what we would call like frequency count, or how many times per session is hitting, for example, happening, and what methods have we put in place to decrease that? Is that effective? We're always watching our data and our graphs so that we can change our interventions if we need to, or advance to the next step. And we've talked about generalization of skills quite a bit, but making sure that our goals are not only being shown in the clinical setting, but also in the community and at school and at home. So that's really where our collaboration comes in with other providers, other schools, and then during caregiver trainings as well, so that parents know what we're working on so that they can work on those skills outside of the clinical setting as well. Um, and then when it comes to our feeding and independence, when we do have some sort of like intervention in place, we are working to fade out those interventions so that we can focus on the independence. And once we see, based on our data, once we see our learners hit that independence criteria, that indicates to us that, that progress was made for that specific skill. Go ahead, Cal. And then here's what we have for our collaboration with other providers. So I will say that it is super, super nice at Access that we have a speech provider and occupational therapist all in one building. That makes collaboration with other specialties very smooth and very collaborative. But we obviously, can communicate and collaborate with any other providers that the child might be involved with, medical providers, even, if we're working on, we've had, several clients in the past that maybe have been on like a new medication, and their medical provider will ask us to take data on a specific behavior so that they can see the effectiveness of their medication, for example. And then families and schools, of course, because we, want to collaborate and ensure that skills are generalizing and effective in other settings. Um, and then, I mean, all around when we do have that collaboration.
I think we lost Kylie. I don't know if she lost connection over there in Clear Lake. Um, but I can finish up if she's trying to hop back on. Um, so collaboration with other providers is just super important. It definitely maximizes effectiveness if everybody is working together. So we always say that ABA is just comprehensive treatment, and we want to work with other providers and have them work with us as well. And then just finishing up on our last slide here. If you haven't started with ABA therapy, if that's something that you're thinking about, we did want to put a list of questions on here in case anybody was seeking out ABA therapy. These are like really good questions if you're like trying to find like the right provider, or the right fit for your family. So we would encourage people to ask ABA providers, how are your goals selected? So like what assessment tools are you using? How are you measuring that? How often are you conducting assessments? How do you collaborate with other providers? Like, will you be able to come into my child's school or my child's daycare, or would you be able to talk to their speech therapist or occupational therapist? So really asking about the collaboration piece would be super important. How do you incorporate client preferences and assent in treatment? That's really big with, again, kind of like new ABA. So that would be an important question to ask to make sure that kids like do get to still like have their preferences in their ABA sessions, and that all of that is being incorporated. How are families involved? So how often do we do, parent meetings? Can parents watch sessions? Can siblings be involved? Can we have grandparents come? Those would all be great questions to ask an ABA provider as well. And then how is progress measured? So again, how often are you taking data? How often are you changing goals? That would be really important to keep in touch with an ABA provider about how the progress is being measured and if goals are changing. And then the last one we have is, how do you determine medical necessity? So as far as like number of like treatment hours per week, that would be good for parents to ask, like, how is that determined? How did you come up with those hours? How often does my child, need to be in ABA therapy? So we would just encourage people to really like ask those types of questions if they were seeking out ABA therapy, or if you have a child who already is in ABA therapy, asking those questions already would be super helpful. And that was the last slide. So now we kind of just left a little bit of time for question and answer here if anybody does have any questions about anything that we went over.
There's no questions in the chat right now, but I mean, I have a couple questions just from questions I've received from other parents is how would you recommend that even ASI responds or parents respond to um, negative comments and questions about ABA and if you should do ABA? Um, Personally, my kids did ABA and it was great, but we also have, um, we've received, other comments that people have had not so great experiences. So how would you recommend families or providers handle those questions?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that's actually one of the reasons why we wanted to put some of those misconceptions in here and try to dispel some of those things. Obviously, we can't control what's put out on social media and what other people talk about. We can just focus on like how we can, present ABA and make sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing that's beneficial for the kids and the families. But I would really encourage families or parents or anybody who does want to know more about ABA to talk to multiple ABA providers. Ask those questions that we kind of put at the end here. Like that's again another reason why we wanted to put those questions because we do want parents to be asking these questions and making sure ABA is a good fit for their child. But people who do have positive experiences with ABA, we would love for them to be able to share their positive experiences, with the general public and on social media platforms and stuff as well. I know sometimes people do have like one maybe negative experience with ABA, but we don't want that to, kind of like hinder their, conceptions about ABA moving forward. So just continue to like ask those questions and learn more about ABA, do the research. Yeah, keep tabs on all of that stuff. But yeah, that's a good question. And yeah, we are fully aware that that's out there. And that's why we wanted to present on that a little bit today too. Any
I know
other?
you mentioned,
Yeah.
oh, sorry. I know you mentioned at the beginning that ABA can also be beneficial for adults, and I know there are not a lot of providers that do it for adults, but how would you imagine it would look different for adults in comparison to how or you work with children?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So, this a lot of the strategies that we talked about are helpful for like everyday life. So, if we were working with adults, and this isn't my scope of practice, but I mean, I'm familiar with like ABA and how we just intervene on behaviors in general. But a lot of it is teaching to like independence. So, like we can teach how to cook meals or how to follow instructions on how to make a meal. We can teach people how to make a bed to independence. We can teach them how to, take out the garbage and like things just like in their, everyday life. So we can use like all of these ABA strategies just to help life improvements in general. And that could be in the home, that could be in the community. I know we've had kids here where we've gone to haircuts with them and we've used ABA strategies to help with successful haircuts. We've gone to doctor's appointments, dentist appointments. So yeah, that's just kind of more examples how like ABA is just for like everybody and wherever they're at.
I know we've had parents ask us about parent training, and I'm assuming that's something you guys also work on. Um, you want to explain just a little bit of that so parents that watch this later can kind of know um, what might go along with parent training once their child is enrolled.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we always start out our parent trainings by getting their input, first of all, on like what they're seeing in the home setting, what they want the child to work on, and then we will implement those goals in the clinical setting. And so then once we start honing in more on the parent trainings, it's going over like the interventions that we're doing, teaching it to parents, modeling. At Access specifically, we do have cameras in all of our session rooms, so parents can like watch along on camera while their child is working on those skills with their ABA therapist, and then we can talk them through those so they can do it at home. A lot of times we'll send data sheets home with parents as well. So if there's like for example, like a challenging behavior that a child engages in at home, but we don't see it in the clinical setting, but we still want to help them with it, they can take that ABC data that Kylie talked about. We can help them determine what the function is and then create interventions and help them through there. So yeah, parent training, it's learning about like what their child is doing, how they can do those same interventions at home. And then we also do like background of ABA. So we talk a lot about different strategies to use. Kind of like what we talked about here today a little bit. That's a lot that we talk about with parents as well. So they're just always being updated on progress that's being made, and so that like, it can generalize and keeping posted on if there's like new goals in place, and then watching sessions. So there's kind of a lot that goes into parent trainings, but it's super beneficial, and we definitely encourage it.
Any other questions? Well, I don't see any other questions. Thank you guys so much for coming on and presenting all of this. And like I said, I know we have quite a few parents that couldn't get on because of the summer, but they're looking forward to the recording. So we'll get that sent out. Everybody who's on will get a copy, get an email with any resources, as well as the recording that they can look at any time. So we appreciate Kylie and Callie. I hope your weather's okay up there, Kylie.
Well, it's a little stormy, but my computer is kind of
Yeah.
done for right now. So
Oh, okay. Tech issues,
uh-huh.
it's a struggle for everybody. So, well, we appreciate Access providing this information. And if anybody has any questions, they can always reach out to ASI. And I'm assuming they can reach out to Access via you guys' website as well,
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
if you're interested in getting enrolled in whatever area you live. So, well, thanks everybody, and have a great Wednesday. And again, if anybody has any questions, you can always reach out.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.